Hello everyone, glad to be back. Today is 10th of May, now it's 1 o'clock, middle of the day by Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is my first update today in which I will share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. Second update will be a little bit late in the afternoon and even though usually I do second update for Patreon only, today I will also share this video on main channel here on YouTube and probably on Rumble also, because in second update I will share with you not just additional information about news that would be reported by Russian media outlets, but I will also share video footage that I made in Moscow yesterday during the celebration of Victory Day. And even though I was unable to create videos that I was planning previously, but still this video footage will at least give you understanding of what kind of atmosphere was in Moscow yesterday. So I hope you will find it interesting. And by the way, when it comes to Patreon and this second update on Patreon, I also do informal talks program on Patreon. I do this to generate additional interest among our community so that I will have little bit more subscribers on Patreon, and if that's the case, then I will have opportunity to continue this work and to continue to improve not just myself as a presenter of this program, but also this channel itself, to develop this channel as well in a better way. So I hope you will consider to subscribe on my Patreon page. I will be very grateful for this. You will see links under this video in the description box. That's been said, let's talk about news now. And by the way, many of you did write to me many times that I should always say that my YouTube channel is not monetized. And yes, that's true. My YouTube channel is not monetized, and only support I have is coming from you by small donations through PayPal, Buy Me Coffee, or by Patreon. So basically I'm working for you. You are my employee, which is good, which is how it's supposed to be, really. And that this way you have guarantees that you stay independent, because you are receiving support from your audience. That's been said, let's talk about news now, and I will start with the Ukrainian special military operation. Yesterday afternoon, Russian Telegram channels and some media outlets did report about yet another statements from Yevgeny Prigozhin, head of PMC Wagner. And even though in previous days there were some hopes that issues between Defense Ministry of Russia and PMC Wagner units was resolved, it's not really a case. It seems like because according to statements from Prigozhin, despite promises from Russian Defense Ministry that they will receive all the necessary ammunition that they need to continue the operations in Bakhmut, unfortunately, they are receiving only 10% of what they need. And we are talking about ammunition, first of all. And Prigozhin was very detailed in his statement. He was saying exact ammunition and exact percentage of what they need and what they are receiving. And he did spoke about possible treason among high-ranking officials. He was very angry and critical. And he also said that on one of the flanks in Bakhmut direction, one big Russian unit just left positions and fled. And because of that, PMC Wagner units find it very difficult to stop advances of Ukrainian armed forces on their flanks. As I understand, we are talking about southern part of Bakhmut. Even though he did not said the exact direction, but my guess is that it was the southern flank, because there are some changes on the map in that direction, on military maps. And yes, what you're gonna say? How you gonna comment this unending confrontation between PMC Wagner and Russian Defense Ministry? It definitely influences very badly on society's mood, that's for sure. This kind of confrontation not creating any optimism whatsoever. And to be honest, when I hear yesterday statement from Prigozhin that one of the big Russian units, and he was talking about brigade, when I hear that brigade left positions, I was thinking to myself, brigade cannot leave positions without orders from high-ranking officials, right? And as you know, for many months now, I was saying that only chance Zelensky's regime will have any success on any direction on the front line is if Moscow, high-ranking officials from Moscow, from defense ministry, for example, will order Russian forces on the front line to retreat on any one direction or regroup. Let's call it, however we want. Like it happened in Kharkov region, in Liman, in Kherson region previously. And to be honest, when I was hearing these statements from Prigozhin that big unit left positions, I did start worrying that maybe because Western elites do need some good news from Ukraine desperately, maybe they will activate their assets in Russian military and political leadership if they have such assets. And in that case, Western elites will probably try to influence decision-making process and force decision makers in Moscow to give orders to Russian forces on the front line, especially in this area between mainland Russia and Crimea. Something is wrong with this map today. So if that's the case, then yes, Western elites will try to influence decision-making process in Moscow to make sure that Russian forces on this land bridge between Crimea and mainland Russia will receive orders to regroup or retreat or whatever, to leave the positions, which will allow Zelensky's regime to not just conduct offensive operations, but also achieve some success, establish control over these territories that will be left by Russian forces. And if this will happen, it will, first of all, it will happen on direction of Novaya Kakhovka here, in direction because it's a very important dam here in that region. It will happen probably in direction of Energodar and the Zaporozhya nuclear power plant. And maybe if Western elites have such influence on decision-making process in Moscow, then maybe they will somehow organize, regroup or retreat Russian forces even from this land bridge itself, in central part of this land bridge. And in that case, I would not be surprised if Zelensky's regime even managed to establish control, not just over the Novaya Kakhovka or Energodar, but also over the Melitopol and Berdyansk. And in that case, they will cut this land bridge, for sure. I'm not saying that this will definitely happen, but what I'm trying to say is that because Western elites are so desperate when it comes to good news from Ukraine, they may use all the assets in Russian military and political leadership to influence decision-making process and make sure that Zelensky's regime will be able to cut this land bridge between Crimea and mainland Russia. And unfortunately, I did start worrying about it much more after yesterday's statements from Prigozhin, because if entire brigade is or some units of those brigades of brigade left positions, then it truly looks like sabotage, internal sabotage. And in that case, God knows what will happen. God knows what will happen, man. So let's hope Russian counterintelligence will deal with all the issues when it comes to Western influence in Russia, and no retreats or regroupings will happen from anywhere, not just from Novaya Kakhovka or Energodar and Zaporozhye nuclear power plant, but from nowhere. And in that case, Zelensky's regime will definitely fail with its offensive or counteroffensive operations. But if Western elites will be successful, if they have such influence on decision-making process in Moscow, then probably this land bridge will be cut. Because Russian forces will have, if they will receive order to retreat, they will retreat or regroup. Because they are militaries and they are acting according to orders. So let's see how it will goes, man. Because at this stage, it's truly difficult to know for sure what the hell is going on. Because just take a look at this story with Prigozhin and the leadership of Russian Defense Ministry. This story is how many months now we are hearing that there are some difficulties between these two and unresolved issues, and for some reason nothing has been done to resolve this issue. And I don't know, maybe Putin was waiting for 9th of May for this celebration of Victory Day, and he didn't want to spoil this celebration, and maybe he will make some decisions now after 9th of May, but I don't know really. I don't know. Something definitely has to be done, and you tell me what will be right decision. You know my take on it. I think Shoigu and Gerasimov should never be in leadership of Russian defense ministry in the first place, but yet again, I'm ordinary human being and ordinary citizen. Who am I to judge? But at least we can have opinion about it. Let me continue now, and this is RIA Novosti's report, according to which, and I'm not just talking about Shoigu and Gerasimov. I believe their deputies, majority of their deputies, should also never be in the leadership of Russian Defense Ministry and Russian Armed Forces. It was a huge mistake in part of Putin, in my opinion, and such a crucial mistake that maybe Putin won't be able to deal with it now. Maybe he don't have enough power to remove these people from defense ministry. I would not be surprised because, yes, there are some legends in the West or even in Russia that Putin can do everything. But I don't think it's exactly like that. He is powerful, but even his powers have some limits. So I don't know what will happen, but this something should be done for sure, because it's just not normal. After all, it's just not normal when one of the most successful units during this special military operation, and I'm talking about PMC Wagner, they were definitely successful, have some issues, unresolved issues with the leadership of defense ministry for many months now. It's just not normal, man. So let me continue now. We have TASS News Agency's report, according to which official from Zaporozhya region, Vladimir Rogov, did stated that Russian armed forces are conducting massive artillery and missile strikes on concentrations of Ukrainian armed forces that are still loyal to Zelensky's terrorist regime. No detailed information in which direction, what positions, but that's what Vladimir Rogov is saying, that Russian side knows about concentrations of forces of Zelensky's regime, and they are conducting strikes to neutralize them. And Zaporozhya region is here, by the way. That's Zaporozhya region. So if there will be any large scale, as I said, man, something is truly wrong with this map today. So when it comes to anticipated by many counteroffensive for Zelensky's regime, if it will take place, and I believe there will be no large-scale counteroffensive, but there will be some local-scale offensive operations from Zelensky's regime. It will take place in Kherson region and in Zaporozhye region, mainly. Let me continue now, and we have statements. This is RIA Novosti's report, according to which Ukrainian side did to try to conduct drone strike in one of the military facilities in Voronezh oblast, Voronezh region, and 2 drones were launched in that direction, and one was neutralized by electronic warfare systems, and one was shut down by air defense systems. So it seems like Zelensky's regime failed to achieve any success with these drone strikes. Let me continue. This is RIA Novosti, according to which, this is very important, very important. So let me translate entire sentence here to be exact. So Russia is denouncing the Treaty on Conventional Armed Forces in Europe. Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov has been appointed as the President's representative when considering the initiative in Parliament, the head of the state said in decree. So basically, Putin come up with the initiative to denounce this Treaty of Conventional Armed Forces in Europe. Maybe this should be done earlier, years earlier, because this treaty was signed in 90s between NATO member states and Warsaw Pact member states. And as you know, there is no Warsaw Pact no more left. It's only Russia. And NATO became much bigger and much more powerful than it was in 90s. So why Russia should continue applying to this treaty about conventional armed forces is just not really understandable. So Putin's initiative is correct, of course, and if it was up to me, I will do it years earlier. Once first Eastern European countries join NATO, I will denounce this treaty straight away. Let me continue now, and next information is from TASS News Agency, according to which head of Ukraine's general staff, Zaluzhny, refused to participate in, even by video call, in a meeting of military committee of NATO on the level of heads of general staff. And according to NATO Admiral Rob Bauer, Zelensky's refusal was based on a difficult situation on the ground in Ukraine. So, he's saying that Zaluzhny is very busy because of the operational decision-making process, and that's why he didn't participate. But I don't take this information for what it seems to say, because maybe Zaluzhny didn't participate in this meeting because of these divisions between the Ukrainian military leadership and NATO military leadership, especially lately. And not just because Zelensky's regime are not receiving all the weapons that they are asking for, but because Western military leaders and Western political leaders are demanding from Ukraine this counteroffensive. And Zaluzhny, for example, being a military person, probably very well understands that if Russian side will not retreat, not regroup like it happened in Kharkov region, Liman, or in Kherson region, if Russian side will stay and fight, then Zelensky's regime has no chance. Zaluzhny knows this. And maybe that's one of the reasons why Kiev is taking its time to start these offensive operations, and by not participating in this meeting, maybe Zaluzhny just made his statement this way. But yet again, we should always remember that all these creatures, all these war criminals, Zaluzhny, Budanov, Zelensky, and the other animals that are in head of current failed state under the name of Ukraine, they are Western assets. They are assets of Western secret services, US CIA and British MI6. So if they will receive order from their masters directly, then they will have no choice. They will do whatever they are told to do. But on the level of heads of general staffs, like in this case, yes, Zaluzhny can ignore them because they are not his bosses. He has his own bosses in Washington, and he will listen to them. But anyway, it seems like there are some divisions between the sides, and in coming weeks and months, we will probably see more indicators of this, maybe even direct confirmations. Let me continue. This is RIA Novosti's report, according to which some U.S. military experts are now openly discussing situation with the U.S. multi-launch rocket systems HIMARS and their ineffectiveness lately in the conflict in Ukraine. And according to reports, and you probably did hear about it, Russian side is very effective to shut down missiles from HIMARS, and not just that, but according to some reports, Russian side did manage somehow to crack communication systems of HIMARS, MLRS, and shut down and influence GPS navigation system of missiles that are launched by HIMARS systems. And that's why some missiles are shut down, some missiles are just hitting empty fields because they are losing this ability to use GPS, to navigate by GPS. I don't know if it's true or not, but we are seeing now that even Western military experts, Western military magazines, and this one, for example, Military Watch magazine did write article about this. They are now openly discussing that something is wrong with HIMARSs, or something did happen that give Russia opportunity to somehow influence on those systems. This is important because if that's the case, then quite possible that this technology that allowed Russia to jam HIMARS missiles will be transferred to China, for example, or to Iran. It's quite possible. If level of cooperation between Russia and China, Russia and Iran will reach such a high level that there will be exchange of quite important classified information between the sides. Let me continue now, and this is TASS News Agency's report, according to which US did refuse once again to supply Zelensky's terrorist regime with the long-range missiles for HIMARS multi-launch rocket systems. We are talking about ATACMS rockets. And well, we may, at one hand, we may say that that's the right decision by Washington, and it is. But in second hand, we have information that London will supply Zelensky's terrorist regime with missiles, with long-range missiles, with radius of with working radius of 100 to 300 kilometers. So I believe if Washington if Washington wanted to, it will take one call to London, and United Kingdom will not deliver to Zelensky's regime none of those missiles. But we are seeing now some kind of game between the sides, between Washington and London, and to be honest, that's what this really is. That's what this really is. They are trying to play what? Good cop, bad cop, or what? It don't really matters, because in Russia, we are seeing entire Western elites as our enemy. Entire Western elite. So they cannot play with us. Because for me personally, entire Western elite should be exterminated. Because they are danger, not just for Russia, but they are danger for human civilization as a whole. So if you ask me, I'm all for total destruction of Western elites by any means necessary to make sure that this civilization will have a chance for a future. And I believe majority of Russian society thinks the very same way when it comes to Western elites. We are talking about Western elites, not the states and countries. I don't have any issues with any country in this world, man. But when it comes to elites, probably majority of you will agree with me that those globalist criminals and their puppets in governments of different Western countries that are called elites. They are not really elites, but they are in the position of elites. They've been put in that position by globalists. And those creatures truly are danger for entire humanity. And probably majority of you will agree with me on this. So let me continue. And by the way, I think if Russian side did manage to jam HIMARS systems, Russian side will deal with these British missiles also. And they will be answered from Moscow. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but one day London will receive answer or retaliatory step from Moscow. Maybe not directly, but this kind of stuff cannot be forgiven or forgotten. So it will definitely have an influence on relationships between the sides for decades to come. That's for sure. Let me continue now. And TASS news agency is reporting that US, this information is quite interesting, because US did decide to give Ukraine yet another package of military aid. This time it's $1.2 billion of military equipment. And during the time when US economy is not in the best shape, let's say, and during the time when even high-ranking US officials are saying that states are on the brink of default because of all these disputes that are going on in US about ceiling of foreign debt. This time, very same time, Washington is making decisions to give yet another 1.2 billion to Zelensky's terrorist regime, weaponry for this amount of money. Well, this will definitely not influence on overall outcome of this conflict, because in my opinion, if Western elites won't be able to manage to influence decision-making process in Moscow, then this conflict is already done, and Russia did won this confrontation with Western elites. So no matter how much weapons Western elites gonna send to Ukraine, we all know what will be outcome. But once again, if Western elites won't be able to influence decision-making process in Moscow. That's a very important point. After all, we should always remember that things happen, man, strange things sometimes, or unbelievable even things. Just recently, for example, in Iran, if I remember correctly, deputy of head of defense ministry was executed because of his treason. He was working for decades for British intelligence service. So, I mean, one may say that, in years ago, if you say anything like that, you may, receive answer that that's impossible. We are talking about deputy of head of defense ministry. But in reality, it was true. And just recently, Washington Post did write article about it, that this person for decades were working for British military intelligence. So things happen, And unfortunately, those Western elites do have a means to corrupt or to chantage officials of other countries and have some influence over them and then over the decision-making process that these individuals are involved in. But anyway, let me continue now. This is RIA Novosti's report, according to which before end of May, Poland will receive some additional Abrahams main battle tanks from US and also missiles from Himars multi-launch rocket systems. As I understand, we are talking about ATACMS missiles, long-range missiles that Himars can launch. Well, not really surprising information, but it's important because Poland becoming one of the main military allies of Washington and London in Europe. And that's a significant development, in my opinion, because seems like Washington and London don't really trust Berlin or Paris. And that's why they need some new let's say new bases or new allies in Europe, and Poland definitely becoming one of those. And yes, this process will continue, of course. They will receive more and more weaponry from UK, from US, and one day Poland may have a most capable army in Europe among European members of NATO states. Maybe Poland already has most capable army of European members of NATO states. We can say, France is much more powerful. Yes, France is much more powerful because they have nuclear weapons. But if you take that segment out, I don't think France has any better army than Poland does, to be honest. I mean, French military was kicked out from Africa, from Africa just recently. Man. We should always remember that, these legends about, and many military experts are saying that, for example, UK's army, entire army, you can put entire UK's army in one stadium. That's it. And France is not much more powerful French army than UK's army. Germany don't even have any army, really. I mean, true army that you can take seriously. No one takes German's army seriously, really. Even in Europe. That's a reality, really. So Poland may already have a best and most capable army among European NATO member states, and their capabilities will rise, definitely. Because, as I said, Washington and London don't really trust Germany and France, as I understand, and they want a new, strong ally in Europe. And it seems like Poland will be that ally, or already are. So let me continue. This is TASS News Agency's report, according to which it is TASS exclusive, according to which Russian side will agree to prolong a grain deal. Right now in Turkey, there are some negotiations about this topic, and TASS did write according to their sources, information of their sources, that the Russian side will agree to prolong this grain deal. And according to this information, this time Russian interests will be secure, but very exactly the same was said during the previous prolongation of this deal, and even from very beginning, that Russian interests will also be secured in this deal. But I have some doubts about it, to be honest, and I have some doubts that Russian majority of Russian society supports, for example, this kind of decision or this deal. But yet again, Moscow has, its own probably special understanding of situation, or I don't know on what basis Moscow is making decisions, but that they will. I said quite a few times previously that Moscow will make some strong statements against this deal and then will prolong this deal. And it looks like exactly this will happen. And you tell me why. Because, as I said, man, Moscow already had stated a few times before that if there will be no prolongation of the grain deal, Moscow will deliver goods to countries in need for free. So Western elites won't be able to use this topic that Russia did not prolong a grain deal against Russia, because Russia will anyway deliver to countries in need. But still, for some reason, Moscow prolonging this deal, even though Russian interests are not secure and won't be secure. I'm quite sure about it. Maybe one ship with Russian goods will participate in this deal, or two or three, but we all know that it's Zelensky's regime and Western elites that are benefiting from this deal, because majority of goods that are exported from Ukraine is sold on Western markets. It not been delivered to countries in need. It was sold on Western markets. And some influential groups did make billions and billions on this. That's what is happening, really. This is just a business, man. That's how they are acting, these so-called politicians. They are making tons of money, man. Always. And war is a quite good opportunity for them, for those kind of creatures, to make even more billions. It is what it is. This is Comerçant newspaper, according to which Lula da Silva, president of Brazil, will participate in next summit of G7 countries, and according to his statements, he will pressure all the members of G7 and all the participants of that meeting to do some more towards peace on Ukraine. Let's be honest, we can applaud Lula's attempt to somehow influence this situation and somehow promote peace negotiations, but together with China, let's say. But we all know that it's up to Washington and London when Kiev will start peace negotiations. Right now, officials in Washington and London don't want to hear anything about peace. So if that's the case, then there will be no peace. That's unfortunate reality. Let me continue. This is TASS News Agency's report, according to which, and Blinken, this head of State Department, this clown. Truly clown, isn't it? Probably most clownish person that U.S. State Department ever had as a head. So this clown made statements according to which U.S. State Department and Washington will spend huge amounts of money to fight Russian misinformation, and they will use EE or EI, artificial intelligence, to do so. Okay, we all know that YouTube is in their hands. YouTube is the asset of CIA. They are controlling it, like Google entirely, and almost entire Western platforms are controlled by CIA and Western criminal elites, right? And what will happen probably is that if now citizens of Western states have opportunity to see any alternative sources of information, like my channel, small channel, tiny in comparison to some big names in this game, but still, if now you have opportunity to see my channel, see some other channels that providing alternative point of view, once they will use all the means to suppress alternative opinion, then my channel will be shut down on Western platforms, at least. And all the other channels probably will be also shut down, and that's it. You will just end up without any alternative source of information. That's what will happen. That's why it's very important. That's why I'm trying to promote my Telegram channel, because at least for now, it seems like Telegram is managing to protect creators on Telegram, and I will be very happy. We are almost reaching 1,000 subscribers on Telegram channel, and even though now Telegram is a secondary line of communication, if anything happens to my channel on YouTube, then at least we will have this reserve channel on Telegram that we can communicate. And I will also be active on Rumble as much as I can, as long as it's possible, and on Patreon. But Telegram is very crucial in this time, because Telegram is not Western platform. And at least for now, they did manage to stay independent. I mean Telegram, and to give a platform to alternative opinion. But when it comes to YouTube, man, I'm quite sure my channel, I don't know how long it will take before YouTube will shut down my channel, but probably it will happen fairly soon. It's now, we only are, like 10,000 community, and this channel is, too tiny. Maybe that's why YouTube is not blocking me yet. But if one day we will reach some other level, then it will not take long before this channel will be deleted. But I will continue, of course. I will continue on Telegram. I will continue on Patreon or some other platforms. So I will try to stay in touch anyway. But this information is exactly about this, that Washington is not happy, or Western elites are not happy, that there are some alternative sources of information in internet that are providing people with the true news, real news. And because of it, of course, they will try their best to block all those platforms. It's just obvious. And then people will have only CNN left, BBC, and rest of the crap, which it's how you gonna watch those channels, or how you gonna watch or read Western newspapers, Washington Post or New York Times? It's just it's just too obvious that it's sources of propaganda of Western elites, man. How you can trust them? But in situation when there is no alternative sources of opinion, then majority probably will, yes, end up in that circle of influence of Western propaganda. Let me continue, and this is going to be last news for this first update. This is Erbakan News Agency's reporting about upcoming presidential and parliamentary elections in Turkey, which will take place on 14th of May. And of course, there are two main candidates when it comes to, there are four candidates formally, but two main candidates on presidency. It's of course current president of Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, and pro-Western candidate of opposition parties, pro-Western opposition parties, Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu. So between these two will take competition. And to be honest, even if Erdogan will receive majority of votes, I highly doubt that Western elites will recognize elections as a free and fair. And then Western elites with Washington, London, Paris. How you say in English Paris? We say Paris in Russian. So Paris and Berlin maybe and other capitals will definitely try to conduct some regime change in Turkey. So it's only 4 days left. Let's see what will happen. But I hope at least they will manage to keep situation in peaceful terms, so that there will be no some civil war in Turkey, which is also possible because the sides are very different, really. On Erdogan's side, they are pro-Turkish, let's say patriotic part of society, and on part of these pro-Western parties, they are, I don't know who they are really, but they have some support among societies. Probably they want to be, recognized by European elites, so much so that they are ready to portray their own country. Because how you can be pro-Western, man, in this time, man? I mean, how you can be pro any country or any region other than your own country? It's just too crazy, isn't it? Everyone should be for country that of citizenship of which he has. I have Russian citizenship. I have to be pro-Russian. There is no choice there. This is, I mean, sorry for my English, man. Sometimes I'm finding difficult to explain myself or express my thoughts, but probably you do understand me. I mean, if you are a U.S. citizen, just be U.S. citizen and be for U.S. and do everything you can to make sure that U.S. is doing great, respected in the world, and it's good for citizens of its own citizens. If you are a French citizen, do the same. If you are a Russian citizen, do the same. If you are a Turkish citizen, do the same. Turkish citizen. But right now we have, not just in Turkey, but in Turkey also, a situation when some parts of society wants to be this part of Europe or Western world so badly and want to be recognized by the West so badly that they are ready to portray their own country. That's how I see this anyway. But yes, let's hope there will be no internal clashes in Turkey between the sides, but situation gonna be very difficult for sure. Very difficult for sure. Let's finish on this. And yes, if you find this video interesting, please hit that like button, leave some commentary about any topic you like, and if you can, please share links to my videos on my channel with your friends that are interested with the alternative sources of information. And if you think this channel is interesting and deserves to exist, please consider to join my Patreon or support with small donations through PayPal or Buy Me Coffee. You will see links under this video in the description box. This is it for now. Have a great day and take care.